I'm Lauren with the YMCA, and it is Wellness Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about if fair means the same, that like everyone is treated the same. So to start, we're going to do a little breathing exercise because it is Wellness Wednesday and it helps us stay calm if we breathe. So we're going to breathe in, take a deep breath for 4 seconds, and then we're going to hold it for a count of 4, and then we're going to breathe out. So you'll breathe in 1, let's do that again. Breathe in. And just one more time, breathe in. All right, great job. So like I said, we're talking about if fair means the same, like everyone's treated the same. I think a lot of times if we're not treated fairly, or we feel like we're not treated fairly, it's because someone got something that we didn't get, or was treated a certain way that wasn't exactly the same as how we were treated. And so we're going to talk about if the only way to be fair is to treat everyone the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little skit. So in the skit, I'm a doctor, just pretend, and I'm working at a clinic, and so I'm going to have some different people come into me.
Ow, I hurt my knee and it's bleeding.
Oh, okay, here, have a Band-Aid.
Oh, thanks, Doc. Ah, I broke my arm. It hurts so bad. Ow.
Oh, no, here, have a Band-Aid.
Thanks, Doc.
Got a lot of people coming in today. It's pretty busy.
I can't feel my arms. I think I'm having a heart attack.
Oh, here, have a Band-Aid. Okay, so I treated all of those patients super fairly, right? They all got the same treatment. They all got a Band-Aid. No one had to complain and say, but I didn't get a Band-Aid. So that's fair, right? You don't think that's fair? Oh, you think I should have treated people differently based on what they needed? I think you're right. And I don't think it's just with doctors that people need to be treated differently based on what they need. I would say that fair does not equal the same. I don't even know if you can see that, but there you go. What we're talking about is the difference between two pretty big words. One of them, you might have heard of both of them, but one of them you've probably heard about. And one is equality. Equality means treating everyone the same. It's the idea that everyone has a chance to be successful in life. Everyone is given the same opportunities. Everyone is treated the same. And equality is important. What if it just went black here? And sorry, equality is important. I have no idea if I'm on, but I'm going to keep talking to you. But can't hear me at all? Okay. All right.
Start at the beginning or start?
sorry, I lost you there at some point. I'm not sure what the last thing you heard was, so I might repeat myself a little. So equality is that big word that means everyone's treated the same. Everyone has the same opportunities, in theory, laid out before them. But equality isn't everything, because just like my patients that came in when I was pretending to be a doctor, everyone doesn't always need the same stuff. Sometimes they need more than just what the average person needs. You might have seen this in your classes at school. Maybe there is one kid in your class who gets to pick his seat. And you don't think that's fair because no one else gets to pick their seat. But maybe that kid has autism or another sensory problem, something that means that they really can only focus in certain parts of the room or else things will be hard for them. It might not seem fair on the surface that that kid gets to pick his own seat when you don't get to pick your seat. But really, if the only way he can be successful is if he's in the front by the teacher or wherever it is, then it wouldn't be fair to make him sit in a random seat when he has needs that you don't necessarily have. So giving people different resources and treatment based on what they need is called equity. I'm going to show you a little picture here. I hope you can see it. This is equality. Everyone is given a box to be able to stand on so that they can see the game. But this guy is pretty tall and really didn't need a box. She needed a box, so it worked out for her. But this kid can't even get on the box in his wheelchair. This is equity. People are given what they're needed, or rather than just everyone's given the same. So this girl got 2 boxes because she could see much better than, here she's just peeking. He wasn't given any box because he was tall enough to see in general. And then he got a ramp so that he could see and get up onto his little booster there so that he was able to see. So that's the difference between equality and equity. Sometimes equity doesn't seem fair if you're a person that doesn't need the same thing someone around you needs. So like the chair example, you don't need to pick your seat, so it seems unfair when someone else gets to. It might be, you might even think about it like, say a kid in your class breaks her arm, and it's the hand she writes with, so then she gets to have someone with her that takes notes for her while her arm is healing. Well, you might say, oh, that's not fair, I don't have someone taking notes for me, but she can't take notes because her arm is broken. That's what equity is. It doesn't always feel fair because with a girl whose arm is broken, you can see it right there. You can see, oh, well, she can't write. But there's a lot of things that people need that you can't necessarily see, and you can't see why they need resources that you may not need. So like autism, I mentioned before, that's not something you can tell just by looking at someone. Maybe someone is from a background where they weren't offered as many opportunities, and so you can't necessarily see that just by looking at them. Maybe someone speaks English, but they didn't grow up speaking English as their first language, so they need a little extra help in English classes because they haven't filled in all those gaps of what they were learning. So I have a little challenge for you. You can write a poem or do a journal or draw a picture of what equity means to you. I wrote a poem this morning so that you could see what type of poem. I wrote it an hour ago, so don't judge it too much. But this is the type of thing you could do. This is called unfair. Unfair. You gave them something you did not give me. Did I not deserve it? Was I not important enough? True, I guess I didn't need it. But that doesn't mean I couldn't use it, or wouldn't like it, or shouldn't have it. Surely they don't really need it either. Couldn't they have used something they already have? What? Well, I'm sure they have something. Oh, I didn't know they were already using everything they had. Well, they could go find something or make something to use. Although, by the time they got it, I guess the rest of us would be done. Then they would be behind because they didn't have what they needed, which would be, I suppose, unfair. So that was my poem. You might want to do a poem or write a story that shows times that people got something that other people didn't need or were given help that other people weren't given, but really that was the fair thing in that situation. Really that was equity. Because in school or in life, it can be easy to just give everybody a Band-Aid because that seems fair. But everyone doesn't need a Band-Aid. Some people don't need any Band-Aids. Some people need surgery. My poor friend who had a heart attack and fell on the floor, and I don't even know what happened to her. She needed serious hospital help, but I just gave her Band-Aid. Like, that wasn't fair. So that's the difference between equity and equality. So, what are some other things that you can think of that are different? Times that you would need some help that's different than what everybody needs. Are there other times in school that you have felt that something was unfair, but maybe there was an underlying reason why someone got what seemed like better treatment than you? I know one thing that I've seen a lot is, like when I was a kid, is it would seem like some kids could get away with a lot more than other kids. And that always frustrated me because they would get in trouble all the time. And I would do like the smallest thing and I would get in trouble. But maybe they were doing the best they could for the situation they had. We don't always know what's going on with someone and what's going on behind the scenes. So it's possible that what was happening was pretty fair. It just didn't always feel fair. And I'm not saying that you just, that if something seems unfair, you should ignore it. I'm just saying maybe ask more questions to see if there's something going on more than you know. Excuse me. So I would love, I don't know if there's a way to do this, but I would love to see like your poems and your drawings, but I probably can't, but I'm sure there are people in your life that you would be able to share it with, like a brother or a teacher, or especially like your teachers that you might have on Zoom meetings or on Canvas right now. They would love to see your poems and drawings. I think they would think that was great. So let's talk a little bit more about this picture. Some people have had issues with this picture. It's just a metaphor, and if you remember from your English classes, a metaphor is where you're comparing two things without using like or as. So this is just a metaphor for life. But some people, there's usually not any such thing as a perfect metaphor. Some people say, well, what if, like, why can't any of these people be playing the game? Like, why does there need to be a fence there at all? Other people will say, well, there should be like more options available. Like, if there wasn't, well, I'm talking about the no fence, if there wasn't a fence at all, this kid wouldn't need special treatment. So really it would be better to get rid of the barrier all the way. There are a lot of things in life that make it harder for people. Like, just because this kid was in a wheelchair, let's talk about like whether or not something is wheelchair accessible. Businesses are supposed to be able to be entered by anyone and are like built so that even if you're in a wheelchair, you can get in. But sometimes they're not as accessible as they should be. It can be hard. A lot of times there's people that maybe aren't in a wheelchair and they don't realize like how hard it can be to get over bumps. And so an example of taking down the fence or removing the barrier would be to look at those places where it's really hard for people in wheelchairs or with other physical limitations to get into the building and solving those problems and fixing them. Okay, With our last few minutes, I want to talk about some more wellness stuff. We talked about this because I think treating everyone in a way that is just and fair, treating people with equity, helps us be more healthy and more included in society, and then our community is healthy, and that contributes to wellness. But let's talk about some of those things that you can do just on your own to help you and your mind and your body feel better. So we started this out with some breathing exercises, which I love for if I'm really nervous or stressed out. There's a lot of different breathing you can do. So we did the 4 count. You can do the bubble breathing where you either like pretend to blow a bubble with your hands, or you're pretending like you're blowing bubbles out of a wand. We used to do balloon breathing where you breathe in and you pretend like you're filling up a balloon, and then you breathe out. And it just helps slow your breathing so that you get even more oxygen in, which helps you feel better, and with your blood circulation, it helps calm you down. What are some other things that we can do at home to be more well? I say it's a big deal to drink water. That's my favorite thing to drink. If you are one of those people that don't like water, there are ways to get water, but it's best to have just plain water. If not, you can get some like all natural, low calorie flavoring to add to your water. That would be better. We try not to say like, oh, just drink juice, because I know it's easy to think, well, juice comes from fruit and fruit is good for you, so juice must be super healthy. The problem with juice is that when you eat a fruit, you get all that fiber and stuff, and that helps slow down how your body digests it and breaks it down. But when you juice a fruit, the way we usually juice it, most of that fiber we lose. And so it ends up being basically sugar water. It's natural sugar, but it's still just a lot of sugar in a short amount of time because we usually drink too much. Juice glasses, when like my grandma was a little girl, were about this big. But now most of the time when people have juice, they're like, it's like you go to McDonald's or something and get a medium size, that's how much juice people drink. And that you might as well just drink some syrup, because it's just sugar water at that point. It's a little bit better than sugar water because at least you get some vitamins, but it would be better to eat a piece of fruit and drink some water than to just drink a whole bunch of juice. Another thing you can do is making sure that you get food from all the different food groups. So I'm sure you've seen like the My Plate, because they have it up in the schools. You can go to the government website, but in general, we think about 5 different food groups, which would be fruits, vegetables, proteins. So often that's meat, but it can be things like soybeans and nuts and things like that, especially if you're a vegetarian. Dairy, but if you're lactose intolerant, that can be soy milk or almond milk. And then I forgot what I haven't said. Oh, grains. So that's your breads and your pastas, although you gotta be careful about how much pasta you have, and your cereals and your rice and all of that. So for your grains, you usually want to make sure that you're eating mostly whole grains. You can look like if it's bread, if it's whole grain wheat bread, it'll have whole grain wheat flour as the first ingredient, because on the labels, when they list the ingredients, they list ingredients based on like whatever there's the most of, that's what goes first. Whatever there's second most of, that's what goes second, etc. So the last ingredient's what there's the littlest of. So you can check and see if it's whole grain. For cereals, if you're someone who eats cereal for breakfast, it's better to have something that is a whole grain cereal without a lot of added sugar. So like Cheerios, Bran Flakes, Frosted Mini Wheats is better than some, although it still has some added sugar, but it's at least whole grain. Not so much like Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops and all of those really sugary cereals. Those cereals really are more like desserts than they are a meal, because you don't get a lot of nutrition from them. And then you want to make sure that you have half of your plate filled up with fruits and vegetables. So the My Plate that the U.S. government kind of set up as like a good picture of how we should eat. It doesn't necessarily say like, oh, it should be a quarter fruits and a quarter vegetables. You can adjust that some, like have 3/4 of your plate be vegetables and then 1/4 be fruit, or you can flip that. But in general, every meal, the bulk of it should be made up by fruits and vegetables. A lot of us don't eat like that, but that's the healthier way to eat. And once you get in the habit of doing that, it becomes a lot easier. I always, if I'm making a plate and it's something where you have like a main dish and those sides, I always fill up half my plate with my veggies first so that I know like, okay, this is what I need to eat the most of, and then add the other stuff. The meats will make up about 1/4 of the rest, a little less than, and then grains will be the last section. And then your dairy you can get from like a cup of milk or maybe something, you eat cheese with it. Obviously, sometimes we don't eat meals that are plates like that. Sometimes it's a casserole and it's all mixed together. But you can just kind of gauge and make sure there's veggies in the casserole and that you use whole grain brown rice instead of white rice, because then there's more fiber. If we eat well and manage our stress through breathing and drink lots of water, obviously it's healthier for our bodies, but it also helps us feel better, makes it easier for us to regulate our emotions. It makes it easier for us to get a good night's sleep, for our bodies to just work the way they're supposed to, and it'll help with your mood feeling better more of the time. If you're not eating right, and so maybe your blood sugar's low a lot because you're not eating enough of the right things, you're gonna get kind of grouchy because you're not getting what you need. And then, of course, always getting enough sleep is important for having a well body, mind, and spirit. For adults, usually they're supposed to have like 8 to 7 hours, but younger kids usually need a lot more, and teenagers actually need probably more than almost anyone, other than, say, babies. Babies sleep like 20 hours a day. But if you don't sleep, it'll eventually catch up with you. It can affect your skin, it can affect your mood, it can affect how well your body digests food. And so it's important to get sleep, ideally the same amount every night at the same time. Obviously things happen, but in general you want to make sure that you're kind of sticking to a sleep schedule so that you are in good shape. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but just to kind of review, we've talked about how fairness doesn't mean everyone gets treated the same. Equality, although it certainly is important if you're talking about, say, in the 60s when people that didn't have white skin weren't allowed to ride the bus in the same, like the front of the bus because of the color of their skin. That was in a situation where we needed equality. Everyone needed to be able to ride in the bus wherever they needed. But to have a completely fair society and community, you also need to have equity, which means that people get resources based on what they need. So we talked about you're gonna do a poem or a journal entry or a picture that kind of displays that. Obviously you don't have to. I'm not gonna come track you down and find out if you did that, but I thought it was kind of fun to write a poem and you might enjoy it too. And then we talked about just some basic things to stay well. Deep breathing for stress relief, eating right and drinking a lot of water, getting plenty of sleep. And to kind of close us off, why don't we do a different deep breathing exercise if you'll do it with me. Sorry, I wanted to make sure. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to, in front of you, kind of trace a square as you breathe. So as you draw one line, you're going to take a big deep breath in. Then as you draw the next line, you're going to breathe out. You're going to do it nice and slow, okay? So do it with me. Breathe in and out. in and out. And you can do this on the table in front of you. You don't have to do it in the air, but I want you to be able to see. Let's keep doing that. Breathe in and breathe out. 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 And then one other thing you can do is if you pretend that you have a bowl of soup that's really hot, and you can, when you breathe in, you can smell. So you're breathing in through your nose. That's called circular breathing, when you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. So you can breathe in through your nose like you're smelling the soup, and then out through your mouth like you're blowing it to get cool enough to eat. So breathe in and out and in and out. And breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. I always like to pretend my soup is split pea soup because that's my favorite. Now you might have a different favorite soup. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for talking with me and watching me talk to you about different things. Remember, everyone doesn't get a Band-Aid. We got to treat people based on what they need. All right, have a great afternoon. Bye.